For us, we genuinely believe in quality over quantity.
Yeah.
You buy one product with Emma Lewisham, that is the equivalent of 4 to 5 others.
Kia ora, Emma. Welcome to Money Talks.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, look, you're probably looking at me thinking, well, obviously not a big skincare product user.
I don't know. Your skin's looking pretty good.
Cool. But you've just handed me a supernatural, is it Vitali?
Vitali
Vitali face elixir.
Yes.
So tell me about that. What have you given me there?
It was in response to our customers that came to us and said that they didn't want to go down the Botox path, but they wanted something as close as possible in a bottle. And we took that challenge on. We have physiologists who understand how the skin works and worked for 6 months to understand how we could sort of replicate some of the benefits of Botox. It's proven in a French lab to actually relax muscles within 24 hours, 91%. So incredible, unique world first sort of testing. And it's been a huge hit. We launched it a month ago now, and we, sort of exceeded projections and sales on it, which has been really, really exciting.
Cool. Exciting. I think I'll give it a try.
Let me know what you think. Yeah.
Before we get into a bit more of that business and brand stuff, I'm keen to get right back to the beginning and ask, what were your first memories of money and holding it in your hand and that sort of thing?
We grew up in the Waikato. My parents said there was 4 of us in our family, and my parents really modelled, hard work to me. My dad, before he would go to his full-time job as a livestock officer, would shear milk cows before work.
Yeah.
And I was always really interested and wanted to spend time with Dad, so would go along with him, and as early as 8 years old. And he would give me some pocket money because of that. I didn't do it because of that. I just loved spending time with my dad and being out and with the animals. But that would be my first recollection.
Oh, cool. And so when you got pocket money, did you save for things or did you spend it? Do you remember what your sort of dreams and aspirations for money were as an 8-year-old?
Not this. To be honest, I think I spent it at the local dairy on pick and mix lollies, and at that age, it wasn't a lot, but just those little treats.
And I suppose, you say, you weren't obviously thinking about this kind of the company and brand and things like that, but as say a teenager and growing up, were you someone who was aware of makeup and beauty products and was interested in that?
Not really. I grew up in the Waikato, then we had a stint in the West Coast, and I didn't use skincare or makeup until 18, 19, until I was at university. I was a bit of a tomboy and loved playing sport and being out in nature, riding horses and with my friends, and it wasn't really something on my mind. I think more what that was on my mind is I've always sort of loved solving problems, a little bit of a misfit and rebellious child at times, and sort of challenging the status quo. So it was more that Emma Lewisham came from who I am as a person rather than my interest in wanting to have a skincare brand. Yeah,
and I'm wondering, did you get sort of money and financial stuff and a sense of doing business? Did you get that from I guess with the farm and also with your dad being a livestock agent? Those are sort of quite sort of businessy type things, right?
I think what I got from my parents is the knowledge of just how important hard work is, tenacity, and that, nothing was below them. My mum had 4 children, and in the evenings when Dad would get home from working, she would go and clean the local banks. And I think that taught me a lot of humility and being willing to roll up my sleeves and do things if it meant I could be better off, my family could be better off.
Yeah, do you recall a sense of how how the financial situation felt generally as a child, or was it just something in the background? Was it a comfortable childhood, or was it a normal sort of middle class childhood? How would you sort of view it?
I would say middle class. We didn't have a lot. There was 4 of us. My parents were young when they had us. We always had opportunities, and if we wanted to play sport or needed things for school or needed clothes and food on the table, that was absolutely there.
Yeah.
There wasn't the extras for overseas holidays, or especially coming to my teenage years, like clothing that I wanted and things like that. But I think I always learned from my parents, really, it is the simple things that make you happy, and something I've Yeah.
Yeah. Were you a good kid at school? I mean, you said you were a bit rebellious.
I I think I was good. I definitely challenged things
Yeah.
and asked a lot of questions, but I still did well. I definitely wasn't the top of the class, but I was someone that thought differently and could solve problems well.
Sure.
And something I say to other kids, like, double down on what you are good at, and not worry so much if you're not great at every subject at school.
Yeah. I mean, were the subjects you chose, and again, going through to university, were you sort of on a career path towards business?
I started studying science at university, actually, chemistry and biology. And as additional papers, I did law papers and business papers, and started to do quite well in the business papers and got asked to go into the honours side of things at Otago University, and was also really keen and put my hand up to work with local Otago businesses to sort of help within their business and solving their problems. And it was always the problem that they didn't think it was. And I just naturally started to go down that path and be more inclined. And so went down more of a business path and studied and finished a degree.
I guess that's a great way to get some on-the-ground experience too, to take what you're learning in the classroom and apply it in the real world too.
Absolutely. And I was fortunate. My final year, I did period in Barcelona at ESADE, which is one of their top business schools, and it was a completely different way of learning in that we were given from our lecturers who worked in places like Google real life business challenges they were facing at that time to solve with them, and I thrived in that, and I absolutely loved that style.
Yeah, my researcher points out this is also where Otago University, this is where you met your husband, is that right?
We did meet at Otago, but we didn't reconnect until he came back from London, and I was in Auckland, and we bumped into each other.
Yeah. And so out of university, what was the first career step? What was the first job?
I actually went and worked in Wellington for the Business Roundtable, so more in like the public policy space, and like really enjoyed that job and my time there and economics and understanding.
Right. So what era was that? They sort of changed name and evolved a bit later on, didn't they? But,
yes. It was when Roger Kerr was running it.
Yeah.
And learnt a lot from Roger Kerr and Catherine Judd, who are just phenomenal business people and good people, and just
to get that economics grounding too, they'll be very focused on that.
Absolutely, I really did, and just the insights there, and really expanded my knowledge in that more political space. Then moved
quite
on.
Cutthroat too. I mean, they were getting involved in all sorts of political debates and all that sort of stuff. Were you sort of in the thick of that?
Absolutely, at the thick of that, and getting to rub shoulders with some of the top CEOs in New Zealand. I think what they instilled in me is that, that wasn't out of reach, and having that exposure, being part of those conversations were hugely valuable for my confidence in such an early stage of my career.
During that era, your first sort of job, was there sort of a sense of finally having a little bit of money? Or, I know you obviously it's not a huge salary when you first come out, but going from being a student and things, was there a sense that, that you were on a financial path?
It did. It was, as you say, coming out of university and that salary, challenging and a really good test to sort of budgeting and managing things. And I remember Mecca actually was in the Kakildis and Steen building that I was in, and so I'd walk past it every lunchtime, and that was my kryptonite.
Yeah. Things that you couldn't quite afford.
Totally.
Yeah. And so but in terms of executive career, Brother was the big break. Is that right?
Yes.
So you were there for 8 years.
Yes.
How did you get into Brother as a business?
They were based in Wellington, and it was a global business, obviously, and I was really intrigued to go more into a more of a business marketing strategy role, and it was one that had international opening as well. So I was working across Singapore and Japan and the UK and the US, and that really interested me, and so I applied for it. I got the role, and then quickly worked my way up to a senior executive role and managing some big portfolios internationally. And I think for me I was willing to work a lot harder than anyone else.
Right,
willing to...
Goes back to that being
my
instilled on the
childhood,
farm.
absolutely, do the work that others didn't want to do because it was below them, and just my ability to solve problems that others
Yeah,
weren't
and did
willing
that
to
take
solve.
you overseas?
It did. I spent a lot of time in Japan, Nagoya, and in Singapore, and the UK, and America, and so that was absolutely fantastic for someone in their late 20s.
Yeah, and you did it was 8 years. Does that sound right?
Yes.
I mean, it's on one hand, it's quite a long time to stay with a tech company, but on the other hand, I guess sometimes people follow one company right through, like Christopher Luxon with Unilever and things. They have an amazing organisation and ability to switch roles. So you weren't tempted just to sort of follow the career path right through, with one big organisation.
Well, I was, and it was such a tricky decision to make. Do I take this punt and launch a company that I was starting from scratch? There was no guarantees. Or I had this opportunity with brother to go on to become a director, potentially one of the first female CEOs of the company. And I had to make a call, which was tough, but I believed that if there's a backup plan, you're not going to go all in. And so I had
no plan B.
There was no plan B. I had to fire the cannonball and go for it.
Again, this is the research notes are telling me, and I sort of not hesitate to mention it, but it is sort of life and death and the unfortunate passing of your mother has been cited. You've cited as one of the reasons for making the big move. Was that a driver?
Yes, it was when everything really connected for me, and a moment of like pause and reflection around my health and way that I was living, and coming into my 30s, and also trying to get pregnant. And I did a lot of research into sleep and exercise and food, and part of the research and discussions I had was with my doctor, where it was raised that hydroquinone that I was using for hyperpigmentation was really questionable and something I should reconsider. I then thought, well, for me, what I feel more comfortable with using is natural skincare.
Yeah.
That seemed the most luxurious to me, the best for my health. And when I went to the market looking for natural skincare that really worked and had science and evidence and luxury aspect to it, it didn't exist.
Wow.
There was a huge gap internationally for that. And I knew if I wanted it, other people would want it too.
So that's one of those sort of moments where all the work you've done to understand business and all that sort of stuff comes together with a sort of very personal experience about seeing a gap in the market for something.
Absolutely.
Was it like a light bulb moment?
It was, because I genuinely didn't set out to launch a skincare brand or a beauty brand.
Yeah.
I came across this problem. It was me since a child, but as a child, loving solving problems, challenging things, having this experience with business and working across multiple functions, so knowing how to pull together a business and a plan and a strategy and products, and going, I think I can do this. And there was something that really lit up inside of me.
Yeah. You took 3 years to launch the brand. What was the process of doing that like? I mean, you're transferring skills, but obviously, from the tech and printing industry across to a very different industry. Did you have to sort of learn the basics of the industry from the ground up?
Steep learning curve,
yeah.
Absolutely, but anything is possible if you put your mind to it. I brought on a co-founder who's Kimberly Morrison. We worked together at the time, and I said to her one lunchtime, I have this idea. I really think there is something here and that we can do something better and that exists on the market. So we spent 3 years. We had to keep our day jobs because we needed the money to fund this business, and so we'd work in the day. We both had really full-on jobs, and then every evening would be online together, every weekend, and then we'd take our leave to work on the business. So I think it wasn't the case that we had a whole lot of money or investment from the start, that we could quit our jobs. We had to do both of them, which was challenging.
Because it's an industry where you've got to look, I mean, there's an element of glamour and, sophistication and all that. You can't sort of bluff that too easily, can you? How do you sort of, without masses of capital investment?
No. We believe from the start of setting up a really robust global company, and so always set out and establish that from the start. I think at the start we were really clear on the things that we would invest in and the non-negotiables, and that for us was like the testing and the scientific research behind the products to prove that they worked and outperformed traditional skincare. So we just prioritised the way that we invested, and we were just smart with how we managed the cash flow and our approach to spend at the start of the business to sort of get runs on the board, get profitable, to be able to put that back into the company.
And did you have a background in the marketing side? I mean, obviously you've put your name is the brand, so it's kind of a all in on the marketing, right?
Yes, I did have background in marketing, and I felt comfortable with it being my name because so much of it reflected the values that I have or the standards I hold myself up to. And it was very much a personal story and a brand that we want people to connect with and feel that they're connecting with a human on.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of some of the reasons as to why it's called Emma Lewisham. But did have a background, mainly in strategy, but I think if you do apply...
It's helpful in that you're able to, you're the person who's going to sell that brand. It's kind of got your name on it, but I guess it puts you out there in a public sort of space that maybe you're not if you're an executive at Brother. Was that a challenge? I mean, all that kind of end of the marketing world.
It's been unique and different, but I've really enjoyed that part of it, and it looks like connecting with my our customers and connecting with
front-facing social media, all that sort of stuff.
Yes, exactly. I have a very private social media which I connect with, my friends and families, but the Emma Lewisham one is very much the world of Emma Lewisham and is in the company.
And talking about the values and things, you take a very ethical, ethically grounded approach to the business. So no animal testing, climate positive, as we mentioned earlier. What was behind your desire to do it that way and to sort of make that a focus? And also, to what extent did you felt that there was? Is there a trade-off or a sacrifice on the pure financial when you do it that way?
Good questions. From the start, and one of the other light bulb moments that we had was that the beauty industry needed reimagining, rethinking. The packaging side of things is our largest carbon emitter, and it also generates 100 billion units of waste annually, which is either going to landfill or being burnt. And we could see this and knew that there must be a better way, and the way is through circular thinking, circular models, refillable products, and brands taking ownership for that material, end of life, seeing it as precious and taking it back, which we do through our Emma Lewisham Beauty Circle. And so from the get-go, we were solving two problems: natural products that worked and were luxurious, and if we knew that if we could achieve that, we could change a business model, because people first and foremost buy exceptional products. Then we give them a much more sustainable model to operate within, which is our refills and our return models. For me, it was always about, we knew this information, we really do dig deep into the information, and because we knew it, we couldn't just carry on with how it always been done. It wasn't the right thing to do. The right thing to do is to acknowledge that as a problem that we need to own and take accountability for. So I think they're the values, about understanding, taking accountability, solving the hard problems, and not just looking left and right and saying, well, everyone else is doing it, that's okay. That's not our way. We truly think differently.
Yeah. I mean, I guess there's no way to cut corners, though, once you've committed to that. Was there ever times when you were sort of lying awake at night worrying about the financial side because of there's got to be, it pays off in the long run, obviously, and it's paying off now, but when you're starting out, that extra outlay to do things properly and do things ethically can be scary, I guess.
It can be, but we're always playing the long game.
Yeah.
I really believe in that. If you make those decisions for the long term, and that did look like investing in a huge amount of packaging that was refillable, because that didn't exist. And right there and then that was challenging, but we knew that would pay off. And now our refillable products, our refill sales, are higher than our main SKUs.
Yeah,
it is already paying off.
And that is sort of transforming the way the industry works.
Yes.
Yeah. We saw that in one profile that you, a former Money Talks guest, Rob Fife, was an investor. How did he get involved, and how did you go about getting those kind of investors involved, pitching?
It was actually through Sarah Fife, his wife, who had used the product and seen Emma Lewisham, and we'd actually just met to have to catch up. And Sarah's obviously also been successful in business, and just to get some advice from her and her like lending an ear. And it really developed from there. We aligned, we had good conversations. We then met Rob, and it was just a natural next step.
He loves Kiwi brand
He
stories.
does,
You know?
he does, and ones that are really wanting to achieve on a global
that's right,
stage.
taking it out to the world.
Yes.
One sort of tough question here, but cost of living crisis and all the recessionary stuff that we're going through right now. I mean, high-end beauty products are sort of a luxury item. How do you sort of focus the marketing and the sales around those sort of issues when we going through a tough time?
For us, we genuinely believe in quality over quantity.
Yeah.
You buy one product with Emma Lewisham, that is the equivalent of 4 to 5 others.
Yeah.
We really do pack incredible value into each product, and we've always wanted to make luxury more accessible. For the craftsmanship of those products, the investment that we put into research and testing and the level of innovative ingredients and concentrations of them, we genuinely could charge twice the amount, but we don't, because that's been a guiding principle of the brand. You pay for what you're going to get.
Yeah.
And for me, I want to create the very best products in the world and ship those to customers, and I hand on heart know that they are getting that, and they're getting really good value.
Yeah, I mean, do you get involved in the science side? I mean, you mentioned a bit of science and chemistry at school.
Absolutely, I love it. I'm really involved with our new product development team, our scientists. I've even gone back to do study and courses with Harvard in physiology and biochemistry. It's an area that I continue to personally invest in,
and that adds a lot of value to the brand. I guess the fact that you're not just the face of it, you're actually involved in the production of the stuff? Or
really
creation?
hands-on with it. I still sign off every batch that's produced to make sure that it hits the quality I expect.
Yeah. We've got a few quick-fire questions. Sort of almost touched on this earlier, but, what's the poorest you've ever been?
I think living in Barcelona as a student, that was tough. It's expensive in Europe, but I was also incredibly happy, and I loved that.
So you were at Otago University, and then
I did an exchange.
Exchange to Barcelona. So this was it a high school?
It was university.
University exchange.
My final year of university, I did finished my degree in Barcelona, which was an incredible opportunity. And
so you're poor, but in a beautiful place.
Yes.
You walk around and stuff.
Well, it was still so beautiful, and you just made do.
Yeah. What's the most indulgent purchase you've ever made?
I remember buying my parents Rugby World Cup 2015, it must have been, the All Black Australian final tickets, which was incredibly expensive for my wage at the time. But I'm so glad I did. It was such a special moment for my mum and dad, and my mum had been really sick at the time. So that was extravagant.
But the kind of thing that you never regret, right?
You never regret, no.
Yeah. Along those lines, but sort of more looking forward, I guess. Do you still have things that you fantasize about buying one day? Like, is there a dream car or a dream batch somewhere or something?
I honestly feel that I've got everything that I need. I think as you get older in life, you realize that the material things don't make you happy. I think for me, it's more wanting to buy more time. More time with my daughter, with my family, with my friends, than material things.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's probably a relevant point to ask this question that we always ask, and but how much is making money important to you, or how much of that is just sort of a byproduct of success?
It is a byproduct. I love having a purpose and having a job where I'm really solving real problems and having an impact on people's lives.
Do you still imagine winning lotto? And if so, how much do you imagine winning?
No, I hear that people that win lotto are really unhappy.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, right?
Yeah, well, I don't buy lotto tickets, but when I imagine winning it, I only ever imagine winning a few 100,000 or something. The idea of winning 100 million and turning your life
Totally.
upside down doesn't sound very appealing to me. But
I genuinely believe if you're waiting for a pot of gold or a goal in the future to be happy, you'll never be happy. It's about genuinely being happy with where you are and your circumstances. And so that's my philosophy to it.
And I guess, so the goals you're setting are around, apart from family stuff, I guess, but around the business and where you want it to be.
And my personal goals. I think I've grown so much as a person through this experience, and it's challenged and stretched and grown me and leveled me up. And they're the goals I have for the business and personally and my family.
Yeah. One thing we sort of, we always ask people if we can make you Prime Minister for the day or ruler of New Zealand for a day, what's something you would do to, sometimes I say address economic inequality, but in this case I'd sort of say, well, or environmental issues or something that's you're passionate about. If you could sort of bring in a big policy to change the country or change the world, what would be your focus?
I think that businesses need to take more accountability for what they bring into the world, and I think that there needs to be more government regulation and changes in that space to hold businesses to account. I don't think it should be all on the government to pick up the issues of businesses and what they do, or all up to customers and consumers as well. So I think more rigor, accountability.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, it sounds like you're not advocating sort of a strict legislative approach, or would you, would you toughen environmental rules, or would you sort of, are you? I guess what I'm getting at is a question about how intense you think government should get involved in business regulation and that sort of thing.
I would hope to think that businesses do the right thing, right? And we are not waiting for the government to regulate or legislate on anything. I think that we want to be well ahead of that, but there will need to come a time where there is more regulation and toughness from a government perspective to meet business and challenge business and what they're doing and the way that they're acting.
Sure, yeah. Hey, look, finally, Emma, just coming back to the brand and how it's going, how is the global rollout going and that ambition of becoming a global brand?
Really well. We're thrilled. Australia is now our largest market. Last year we launched into the UK with a retail called Space & which is equivalent to Mecca, and are now in all of their doors, as well as Harrods and Liberty. The further expansion in the US this year. So it's been an incredible reception globally. I think for us, we're still very young, 4.5 years old, and we see that Australasia is still our very key markets that we want to get right. So although we are growing internationally, we're doing it in a really measured and thoughtful way and not at the compromise to what we're delivering here.
Sure. And I guess you've also got to be careful about growing the organisation the organisation too fast. You sort of, is it organic, or how do you approach it from a business point of view?
Because art and science, yes, of wanting to do so in a way that's sustainable for our people, our operations, how we're doing things, but at the same time being able to manage that growth and execute on that growth incredibly well. So it's about always looking ahead and where we're going to be in 12, 18 months and preparing for that rather than preparing for where we are now.
Sure. Emma, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. To stay up to date with all the latest New Zealand Herald news, click the subscribe button below or check out one of these videos, and head over to nzherald.co.nz for more news worth knowing.